Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 120 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. This week, I am checking out the 2019 Japanese CGI anime film Lupin the Third, The First. This is the first 3D foray into a Lupin the Third film, so I'm very excited to talk about it. And this week, I've got two guests to help me out. We got show regular Jacob, who, if you're familiar with our Infinity Train reviews, he has been on the show at least 4 times at this point, so always happy to have him back on. And I also have my friend Chris, who happens to do a lot of cosplay and 3D printing, who also wanted to come on because he's a big fan of Lupin the Third, and we had a great time checking this one out. Just a quick note that this will include spoilers because we get into the entirety of the film, so if you haven't seen it first, please check that out, and it's a really good movie, and I'm sure that you're going to have a good time. So, again, thank you so much for listening, and hope you dig this review. Take care. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I'm Tracy, and this week I have 2 guests with me. 2 friends of the show, and one of which I've been meaning to have on for a little bit, just has never happened, and one who's basically a regular at this point. So we'll start off with Jake. Could you please introduce yourself, Jake?
Hey, I'm Jacob Davison. I'm co-host for the Ion Horror podcast, horror writer, and frequent guest on the Not Joanna Eggs podcast, usually for genre stuff, but really excited to be on tonight's episode.
Yeah, you may as well have one of those, like, the guest starring things that they do on things like Full House, where it's like, and also starring. Because you've been here at least, like, 4 times.
Or could I get, like, one of those membership cards where when I come back for the 10th time, I get, like, a tote bag or a free meatball sub?
I think you're probably at least halfway to a meatball sub at this point.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. It will be sent to you in the mail.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we've also got Chris. Could you please introduce yourself, Chris?
Hey, how's it going? Yep, my name's Chris. Also go by C-Dubs. I do a lot of like cosplay work, and I have like a little Instagram channel.
Cool. All right. Well, that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get into Lupin the Third, Lupin the Third, the First. I'm gonna keep getting that mixed up, I'm sure. But this is known as being the CGI Lupin movie that technically came out in 2019 in Japan, but we just got it, I think, as of October of 2020 because of COVID. I think it was viewings were very restricted, so I just saw it on video on demand, and I know that you guys just watched it last night.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some exposure to Lupin movies, but the only other one I've really seen was Castle of Cagliostro. I believe, Chris, you'd watched the anime series, or there were like 2 different anime series, I think?
Yeah, there were several anime series, parts 1 through 5, but the best entry point for a lot of people is the Castle of Cagliostro movie.
Yeah, mostly because it's famously directed by Hayao Miyazaki, which honestly, when you watch it, you can tell. Even though they've got a lot of the Lupin the Third like comedy beats and how fast-paced everything is, you can tell because he's less of a creep, which I personally really appreciate.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing in this movie too. Like, he's got a reputation for being kind of a womanizer and like kind of gross, but they thankfully didn't do that in Castle of Cagliostro, and they didn't do that in this movie either.
I actually got into the series back in the early 2000s, like it was an early Adult Swim show, the original 1970s anime.
I didn't realize that they had that on, because I know that they did a lot of Space Ghost and Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but...
Yeah, well, when they first started getting anime on Adult Swim, yeah, they had a bunch of retro stuff. I forget exactly when it aired, but the 70s series was on Adult Swim on and off for a while, and a lot of it were adaptations from the manga, which I actually read quite a bit of, which...
Oh, dang.
He was a lot more of a creep and stuff in the original series than he was more, in modern times.
I think it's one of those things that's thankfully very much been toned down with age, because if they had kept him as creepy and weird as they did back in the day, I don't think he would be as fondly remembered as he is now. Also because this movie, Lupin the Third, the First, they almost finished it before Monkey Punch, which is the pen name of the writer of the series. I think he passed away before he was able to see this movie come out, which is a real bummer. But he worked with the team very directly, so you can tell very much that so much of his style, his sense of timing and action is really prevalent throughout this entire movie.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Let's get into the plot. Jake, do you want to give a very brief synopsis, or otherwise I can? No big deal.
Oh, yeah, I can cover it.
Okay.
Basically, the story starts out in Nazi-occupied France, where an archaeologist named Professor Bresson gives a diary to some relatives who try to escape the Germans. And there's a bit of a prologue, which then goes into the 1960s, because this is a period movie. The diaries put on display in a museum in Paris, France, where, of course, Lupin is trying to steal the book. And it turns out it was a trap by Inspector Zenigata, who's kind of like his... It's not really like... I mean, they're enemies, but they're kind of like...
Frenemies.
Less Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty and more like Seinfeld and Newman.
Yeah, I would say it's almost like Zenigata is Lupin's Javert, where it's like Lupin is obviously so much more swarthy. He understands how to evade Zenigata a lot more, but he also has this kind of begrudging like love for him. Like Zenigata is clearly over his head, but he's not going to give up, and he always has this slew of guys right behind him.
Yeah, no, he's completely obsessed with capturing Lupin. As is typical with a lot of these heist movies, there's a lot of different angles to it because Lupin's kind of flame, kind of partner, kind of rival, Fujiko Mine, was also at the museum to steal the diary, and diary also ends up stolen by a young woman named Letitia, who is disguised as a guard, but was also after the diary, so there's like 3 different people after it.
Yeah, so this all basically sets it off into this massive kind of like heist adventure film. The thing that I found most striking is just that it's so consistent in terms of like they don't waste any time between stuff. It's like you go from set piece to set piece. They have a lot of the classic things like him leaping unnecessarily like really high buildings that he probably should have plummeted and died from, but he doesn't, like, no problem. Wearing the most garishly flamboyant suit of all time.
Yeah.
Where it's like you'd think that it would be easier for them to find him, but apparently not.
Especially because he wears a bright red jacket.
Yeah, red jacket and a very loud yellow tie.
Yes. And I love that even there's a scene during the French museum heist where he's just standing on a chandelier getting shot at, and he's just, posing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
he's literally just flexing against them at that point.
They also have Lupin's kind of partners in crime / friends, Jigen, who's a master sharpshooter, and Goemon, who is a literal samurai who can slice for anything with his sword, pop in, because it's like the full cast from the original story.
Yeah, God, they make such good use of that in terms of visual gags, too, because it's like he literally just shows up, uses his blade, and then immediately things get divided in half so cleanly to the point that it should be like if anyone had been slightly in the way of that, they would have been halved perfectly like an anatomical model. I love that there's a great scene at the beginning that involves a bus where they're trying to transport Lupin, I think it's an Interpol police cruiser thing. Yeah, and they're trying to take him back to the headquarters, and Goemon just shows up, slices it directly in half, and then Lupin jumps into the sunroof of the Fiat, and then they just get away.
Oh, yes, they brought back the yellow Fiat. Again, going back to Castle Cagliostro, it's just kind of been a staple for Lupin ever since, just because it was in so many iconic car chases and sequences from that movie in particular.
The Fiat is like a iconic car, like James Bond's famous car. Gosh, what was that called? It's like the silver car.
Oh, was it the Aston Martin?
I think so.
Yes, the Aston Martin. But that's like so recognizable though for James Bond.
It's his Batmobile.
Yeah, it essentially is his Batmobile.
Yeah.
Because it's weird because Lupin the Third is essentially the James Bond of Japan anyway, where they don't really have a huge equivalent, but since he's played as more of a comedic character, people are a little bit more forgiving of the fact that he is a thief, but he's not fundamentally a terrible person.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for people to reconcile like that. And like just overall, the aesthetics of this film are unbelievable. The instant that I saw the trailer, because this was like going around Twitter for quite some time, I was like, holy shit, I cannot wait to see this. There's so much care and obvious attention to detail that's coming from the team that's working on it. There's clearly a lot of love for the franchise as it is, because I haven't seen all the movies, but this really made me want to check out a lot more.
Yeah, no, and I feel like it manages to really recapture the style and themes of a lot of the earlier movies and Lupin the Third stories, because you got Lupin and his gang up against a bunch of other bad guys.
Yeah.
Over like an either ancient, lost, or unstealable treasure.
Have they ever featured Nazis as primary antagonists? Or because I know that like clearly since it takes place in the 60s, it feels like maybe they would have.
I feel like they have in some of the episodes.
There was an episode in the original anime where they try to steal Nazi gold.
Oh, nice. That's the
Yeah.
most valuable kind of gold there is.
Yeah, and actually, like, without spoiling anything, there are some parallels between that episode and some stuff that happens in this. So,
And also, to an extent, kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like,
yeah.
less supernatural, but definitely some echoes back to it.
Oh no, I was totally gonna lead up to that. This had a very Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones vibe to it.
Yeah.
Just in terms of being very pulp, and of course fighting Nazis. So.
It also kind of had like a Crystal of the Lost Skull kind of feel towards like the end.
Wait, I really like that you're reminiscing on that fondly, and a lot of people hate that movie. I don't know if you genuinely like it or if you're just like, what? Like, did this just come out of nowhere for you?
Like it's kind of like memeable, and it's so bad that it's like it's really good.
My most surprising thing with it is just the fact that Lupin has such a bountiful array of rubber masks at any time. Like, I don't know where
yes.
he keeps getting these made, but he just happens to have them with him, like, not spoiling anything. There's something about the sense of humor. Like, this is the most fun I've had watching a movie in ages. The whole mantra of it is just go with it. There's so many times where they ask you to question physics and question, like, plot conveniences, but it's like, no, just run with it. You're just going to have a good time.
No, it's funny. We were actually joking about that last night. Like, maybe he has a 1960s 3D computer in his pocket or something for the masks.
Oh my god, yeah. He's just making them.
He's got a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible mask printer.
Yeah, I don't know, like that, or he's just really crafty. So the whole thing behind the Bresson Diary is that it's supposed to, well, okay, let's go ahead and get into some spoiler territory. Like, we'll just say if this is the point in the review where we're going to start getting into spoilers. So if you haven't seen this already, but you want to, please stop here and then re-listen after you've seen the movie. Just because it's really good. I don't want to make it too obvious for you what happens. So please, this is your final warning. Okay, so let's go ahead and spoil the shit out of this then.
Alrighty.
Let's talk about, so the Bresson Diary involves two keys that are from both Lupin. He got one from his grandfather, and Letitia got one from, I believe she got one from Dr. Lambert, who is the man who said that he is her grandfather, but he's actually a Nazi spy who's been using her as his own private lackey.
Yeah, and they work for this Nazi SS offshoot organization called the Enerbe?
The Anherbe or something like that? I don't know.
Enerbe, and
it's like a think tank for Nazis, so it's like Silicon Valley, but like worse ideas.
Yeah, and it's run by this guy named Gerard, who is the most Nazi-looking Nazi guy without wearing like a Nazi uniform. Like, he's got like the scar on his eye, and he's got like the white slick back hair.
Yeah, kind of like the villain from the We Bare Bears movie.
Oh my god.
A little bit.
Doesn't he? He kind of looks like the villain from that.
A little bit. But yeah, so they're obsessed with finding this treasure, which they think is some kind of super weapon, because they want to bring back the Third Reich, because Gerard believes Adolf Hitler is still alive based off of a photograph he has of supposedly wheelchair-bound Hitler in Argentina, based off of those...
I love that they brought up that conspiracy theory, because I've both loved that story and also... it's such like weird wishful thinking to just assume that he's just living somewhere in South America and no one cares.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually watching The Simpsons, and I love like that Bart versus Australia joke,
God.
where like he's calling all those places in South America.
I was thinking of that when I was watching him. He's like, eine Minuten, where he's trying to get into
das Carphone ist Nussensphone. Buenas noches, mein Führer. Oh, yeah.
He's just trying to answer the phone. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. While we're still talking Simpsons and Lupin the Third, funny enough, a bunch of Simpsons people, including Brad Bird, are big Lupin the Third fans, and they inserted some homages here and there, like, Bart After Dark episode where Bart works at the burlesque house, and there's that scene where he's on the roof and he's about to fall off. Like, that was directly an homage to Castle Cagliostro.
Oh, yeah, that's right, when he's stuck up on the roof of the castle.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
So it is kind of funny seeing just kind of the influence Lupin the Third has had, through film and Western animation over the years. characters.
Yeah, dude, it feels like a very underrated series. Like, if you're a big fan of Cowboy Bebop and you haven't seen anything of Lupin the Third, you need to check it out. Because it's got it's got the same amount of like energy and like a weird cast together. It's a lot less quiet than Cowboy Bebop. Like, it demands a lot more attention, but it's really worth it. You know, it's a very funny, fast paced series.
Definitely.
Also, lots of jazz.
Yeah,
it is a very
so
jazzy series.
Lots of jazz.
Yeah, the soundtrack is like the best part of it because so much of the music
Oh, yeah.
is like there were a couple of points where they had like the bass that was going like the waka chicka like that sound, and I love that.
Yeah.
It's a very nostalgic.
Like a spy comedy or something.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have one of the Lupin the Third vinyl records.
Oh damn, where'd you get
Oh,
that?
nice.
Amoeba Records in Hollywood. I got
Nice.
very lucky.
Oh dude, are they ever gonna come back or are they closed like fully?
Well, to put it simply, the original location is closing down, and they're working on their move to the new location, which is also in Hollywood, and I don't know, it just kind of depends on COVID, so it's a whole thing.
God, that sucks. I'm so ready to be able to travel somewhere and like just go to a thing, like a bar or a museum,
Oh, yeah, I
and not
feel
worry
that.
about dying.
Yep, that would be nice.
So, Chris, I wanted to ask, since you're more familiar with the actual series, how different is this tonally from what you had watched back in the day?
Well, let's see. The title is Lupin the Third, the First. So he's actually wearing the red jacket, which is kind of a symbol of like this series being not so like violent, and it's like a lot. It's very toned down. It's more comedic. You can kind of like tell what kind of vibe each Lupin series has based off the jacket color. I believe that the green jacket was a lot darker. Blue jacket is more modern.
That's a very interesting touch, the fact that they make it more distinct based on the color of the jacket that he was wearing. But I do remember that I think it was in Castle of Cagliostro is when he was wearing the green jacket, unless I remember that incorrectly.
Yeah, he wore the green
He
jacket
was
in that
wearing
one.
the green one, yeah.
Nice. Well, let's go ahead and just kind of get into. We're already spoiling stuff, but essentially what the Bresson Diary does is that it reveals that there is a super weapon that is capable of creating a black hole for some reason that it can like destroy pretty much everything around it. I think it's like a mile radius, something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what the Nazis would even do with that. Like, that was the part where it kind of lost me. Like, for the most part, I really enjoyed it, but I was like, this just feels like a bad idea even for the Nazis.
Well, bad ideas and Nazis go hand in hand, really.
It's true. And it's never been a better time to dunk on Nazis.
Oh, yeah.
At least in current pop culture, at least.
Yes, no, I was actually going to say it's purely coincidental, but you could draw a couple of parallels between, the current problems with fascists and kind of the way these Nazi clowns are clowning about. Like the whole thing with Gerard being obsessed with the Hitler is alive conspiracy theory.
Yeah, dude, I would love to live in precedented times again. Like, just once to have a movie that involves Nazis that is not timely would be so great.
Sure would.
Yeah, like we can go back to it being nostalgic, maybe. Who knows?
Who can say? Yeah, so the plot progresses, and Letitia ends up teaming up with Lupin the Third and his gang to try and stop Gerard and the Nazis from getting the weapon first.
Yeah, she really is allowed to kind of hold her own because she's a archaeology. At least she's trying to become an archaeology student at Boston University. Go BU.
Yes.
But yeah, that was weird to hear. I don't know if you guys watched this, if you watched the dub or if you watched the sub version, but the one that I watched was in Japanese, and it was just hearing a Japanese woman say Boston University like that. I was like, oh, I know who that is. I used to live not that far from there.
Yeah, it was kind of amusing to see that be a plot point.
Yeah, absolutely. Also because she's fluent in so many like basically dead languages that makes her an asset to the rest of the team to help them figure out exactly where to go. And eventually they end up in I forget. I'm sorry for mispronouncing this because I know I'm going to mispronounce it, but is it Tiyukahan? Something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, but so that's where they end up, and there's a fantastic set piece that involves them trying to figure out a series of puzzles, which were left there. Like, one involves placing an eye inside of this, I guess, kind of like a monolith sort of thing to prevent them being crushed in on themselves, which is pretty gruesome. But of course, the head Nazi guy is completely nonplussed. Like, he's like, oh, whatever. Like, Gerard's like, I could not care less.
Yeah, again, I love, all the death traps and stuff. Very Indiana Jones.
For sure. Especially the the bit involving Goemon's sword, where like he is so adamant about not wanting to leave it there, but there's something about the blade that's used within his sword that is, I think it's meteoric iron.
It's a meteor sword, yeah.
He has to put that facing towards this gigantic cavern that has a bunch of what appears to be like stardust or some kind of materials floating in the air. But because it's a meteor-based iron, that attracts them, so then he can make a path for them to walk across.
Yep, and then the third one, which has probably one of the most compelling action sequences in the movie, it's like this death trap, a hallway where it's like these different magnets shoot like pressurized water or gravity or something at whoever walks through. So Lupin has to use Jigen's hat in conjunction with his father's old cane, which is still there, to circumvent the different blasts from the trap and make it through the hallway.
Yeah, in the most badass trailer shot you could possibly imagine.
Matrix style.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, and the fact that he's able to use like what appears to be like I wouldn't call it like a grappling hook, but some kind of like
It's like a zip line.
Yeah, like a wrist wire.
Yeah, it's genuinely very spellbinding because they do the thing where they have it slowed down just a bit, but it's not to the point that it's excessive like in a Zack Snyder film. Because you really do get to see like the amount of attention that they put into like, say, whenever he's reacting to something or trying to duck out of the way, you can like see all the pores and like sweat and stuff that's on his face when he's trying to do it. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it just accentuates just how amazing the animation is, especially going from traditionally 2D with this franchise to 3D. Mm-hmm. Oh, the hair, my God. It's amazing what they did with the hair.
Oh, absolutely. It's not really been a huge emphasis in terms of Japanese filmmaking for making a whole lot of CGI films. Like, I'm not sure if you guys saw that they made a CGI remake of the original, like the first Pokemon movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, we were just joking about that last night.
As somebody posted kind of a weird character design from that movie.
Oh, God. I could see what they were attempting to do, but I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the first one except that it's not a great movie, but they didn't have to remake it in CGI. I don't know. Unless it was just a way for the studio to have like a showcase of their work.
I love that this like a series, this movie just like perfectly captures who the characters are. Like everyone looks exactly like they should right off the bat. Like tell like this is Lupin. It's very reminiscent of like the old animation styles, and you can just tell like who these characters are like through like storytelling, like who they are. Like you can kind of tell like. Piece by piece, like what kind of relationships the characters have, and it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. The thing that I found the most striking was that it doesn't do what a lot of movies do, where they have to take the emphasis off of a bunch of side characters and make it just primarily about the first one. Like, everybody gets a fair amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting too, because it could work as kind of a stepping stone for anybody who has never actually watched any other Lupin the Third stuff. Like, this is standalone enough that anybody could see this movie and kind of get the hang of it and the characters. Kind of go back to the plot, like the Nazis pulled the typical thing where like it turns out that they were just watching Lupin and everybody get through the traps, so they pulled Fratellis from the Goonies thing.
Yeah.
They just followed them after they did all the trap and stuff so that they could get the black hole super weapon.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know exactly what someone would plan on doing with that. Not me personally, unless they were doing some massive excavations, but that just feels like something that should be locked up by top men.
Well, they are the Nazis, so they would probably like just like threaten countries and just like ask for like I don't know, some sort of like ridiculous sum of money for not destroying their like country.
Oh, for sure.
And Gerard thinks that if he gets the super weapon that Hitler wanted, then they'd just be like, hey, we got Hitler and we got a super weapon. Give us the world.
Yeah, it's like his whole like drive is that like, when will Senpai notice me? And Senpai happens to be Hitler.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was simping so hard for Hitler. Am I allowed to say that?
True. Yeah, you can say simp. Okay.
Because I can't say simp on Twitch.
Okay. Wait, really?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's now like a derogatory.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you can't say simp, and you can't use poggers in the chat anymore because those assholes ruined
it. Oh, God
it.
damn it.
Fucking sucks.
If we're talking about the rest of the movie, I also think some of the final fights were very well animated and very enthralling. Turns out Lambert, the scientist, wanted to betray the Nazis, mostly out of pride, and there's a fight, and Gerard tries to shoot Letitia because she wants to try and make the weapon self-destruct so the Nazis can't use it, but Lambert takes the bullet for her even though he said that he was just using her, so it was kind of a last minute redemption sort of thing.
It's like a change of heart moment, yeah.
Yeah,
a little bit, yeah.
It all leads up to the big finale where they go to Gerard's island fortress where the rest of the Nazis are. And who should be there but Mr. Adolf Hitler in a wheelchair?
God, that was so surreal. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm not used to seeing animated depictions of Hitler at all that are not in like old-timey like World War II Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons. Like, they really do make him look like he's just like 90-year-old Hitler just hanging out in a wheelchair.
Yeah, so Hitler congratulates Gerard and he's super stoked about it, and Letitia is taken away by the other guards who, if you pay very close attention, do look familiar.
Yeah, you can see Jigen's beard or like his stubble in the top right corner whenever she's being like arrested or whenever it seems like she's being arrested by them.
Yeah, and when Gerard takes Hitler to the weapon, he gets so excited he walks, and it's not a Dr. Strangelove thing. It's Hitler with another, like, rubber mask disguise.
It was I all along.
Yes. Which, going back into it, like, that was a similar thing to that Lupin the Third episode I was talking about where they were trying to steal the Nazi gold, because Lupin does disguise himself as Hitler in that episode to fool the Nazis into giving him their gold.
Come to think of it, there are a lot of disguises that are used with Lupin, because he did the same thing at Castle of Cagliostro, too. But it's like, he just happens to have these things.
Yeah, no, he's like way ahead of Tom Cruise on that curve.
I need to figure out where he's getting all these things made, to be honest, because I would like to get a mask of my own face and then rip it off and say, it was I all along. They never suspected it.
I would not expect that. I wouldn't.
Yeah, there you go. I would just be like, and it's even got like the same hair, but it's obviously like a bad quality wig.
Yeah, so it turns out Lupin and Interpol landed on the island before Gerard and everybody else got to the island, beat the crap out of all the Nazis and arrested them. Then Lupin disguised himself as Hitler so that he could pull a fast one on Gerard, and it leads to this final confrontation on the plane where the black hole weapon is. And Lupin takes the plane up to try and get it to self-destruct. There's a big fight. And Lupin tells Gerard to his face, yeah, Hitler's dead. This is just like an Interpol conspiracy thing to weed out Nazis.
He's like, dude, you need to let it go. Like, he died. Come on. What are you doing? The rest of your life has been a lie. You need to accept it and move on.
Yeah. And, of course, Gerard does not take that well and tries to beat the shit out of Lupin.
Yeah, but Lupin just yeets him into the black hole with the picture of Hitler, and he's like, here you go, see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.
And again, you know, it's kind of Castle Cagliostro thing where, like, Lupin doesn't really outright kill him, but, like, the villain's own hubris and stubbornness, it leads to his own death.
Yeah, like, Lupin is never portrayed as being an overt murderer, at least, like, not in this kind of film or not in Castle of Cagliostro. I don't know about the modern ones. I've heard that there are some that are particularly bloody, like some of the TV specials that are, but in this one in particular, he's not that egregious in terms of violence. So he's more just playful, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in a lot of like the more modern like shows, he's actually fighting for his life a lot more, and he doesn't always like get his way like Lupin. You'll see him like in very dire situations. He'll be injured almost fatally, and he'll come out of it like nothing.
Damn.
So he's not always like a step ahead of his opponents.
Okay.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, I'd still like to check them out at some point. I think that would be a lot of fun to just like. I watched a video on YouTube not too long ago that was like just going through all the TV specials and the films that had been released, and she's like, yeah, skip this one, this one's really funny, skip this one's really violent, but if you're okay with that, watch it.
Yeah, my favorite is, I forget which one, but there's one where Lupin poses with the Super Friends.
Oh, that's sick.
But like the little Warner Brothers Super Friends, and like Robin, Wonder Woman, and Superman are kind of stoked, but Batman's just kind of glaring at him.
Oh, dude, I feel like that would just be like when Scooby-Doo meets the Harlem Globetrotters, where it's like there's something that's just so off-putting about it, but you're like, I can't not watch it because the camp factor alone is like, it's very interesting to me.
Yeah. But yeah, so back to the story. Like, it looks like the plane erupts with Lupin inside, but sure enough, he managed to jump off at the last second.
Yep, and everything is all right with the world, except they don't really explain how Letitia gets off the island. I'm guessing that Interpol probably called someone for her, but we see Lupin leaves in a speedboat. So does Fujiko with a bunch of Nazi stuff that she stole. Well, it was more art and antiquities that the Nazis had stolen that she stole back because she's like, I got to get paid somehow. And I'm like, I respect that. I respect the hustle.
You gotta respect the Fujiko hustle.
Oh, absolutely.
Lupin helped Letitia get into BU by sending in one of her thesis papers while he was at her apartment.
And dude, that scene is really funny if you rewatch the movie for a second time because you see that in between parts of that section of the film where they're talking to each other, her paper disappears off of the desk. So he had pocketed it at that time. I was like, you clever son of a bitch. Like, really appreciate that attention to detail.
I didn't even realize that.
Kent had rented it and we watched it because like we just had like the week from hell. So we watched it twice within about 2 days and we're just like, holy shit, that's a really nice touch. Like, because then you can see all the stuff that you missed the first time. Because since we had the subs on, we couldn't keep our eyes peeled for everything. But yeah, God, this movie's just so much fun. I want to get it on DVD now.
Oh, me too. I want to get the Blu-ray and like see all the special features.
Oh, for sure. All right, well, let's go ahead and start doing closing thoughts, and then we'll get into handles and stuff like that. Anybody have any other last observations or
looking up like the production stuff, like the animation studios? I found out that TMS Entertainment they worked on a lot of other Lupin properties.
Oh,
sure.
Also, Marza Animation Planet, they did a lot of the CGI work in this movie. Some of the most notable movies that they worked on and are working on is the Sonic movie. That Sonic movie.
Damn. I guess that makes sense.
Fun fact about TMS I found out a couple years ago. They worked on both... Well, they worked on Lupin the Third, but also Western stuff like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. So in a couple Lupin episodes or specials, you can see Lupin watching kind of a parody version of Tiny Toons or Animaniacs on TV. And in 1 or 2 episodes of Animaniacs, a couple Lupin the Third characters are background characters. Like there's one where, when the Warners fight the dragon, Jigen is a cart driver, and I think Goemon popped up in an episode or 2.
Yeah, the only thing that I had a lot of trouble finding for this movie was what the budget was, because I saw what the returns were, where I think it grossed about 1.1 billion yen, which is roughly $11 million in U.S. currency. But I have no idea how much money was spent on this because I couldn't find it online. But it feels like it was a very expensive movie for how good it looks and how concise everything is. But I'm not sure if they're going to disclose that because it's Toho. And Toho, I think they might want to be secretive about it, or they're trying to see how well it does to see if they can do a sequel. Because I think I'm not sure if they're working on one at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really hope they do make a sequel because this was just an amazing jump in animation, and they really made the 3D CG work, especially with the style of Lupin the Third. So, so hopefully this isn't another case of Tintin, which another parallel could be drawn there.
Yeah, I like Tintin. I'm not the biggest fan of mocap, but I really appreciated the storytelling that they had. Like, it felt like what Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull should have been, but wasn't.
No, this worked, though. They really did a good job of translating the animation and character designs into CG, so I do hope we get more of this.
Absolutely. Me too. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start wrapping up. How about you, Jake? Where can they find you, and do you have anything that you're working on?
You can find me on Twitter at @JacobDavison_. That is at JACOBDAVISON_. And you can also find me on Letterboxd as Jacob Davison. And also check out my podcast, Eye on Horror. We're on Buzzsprout and other podcast sites like Apple. And we've got an episode coming up where we interview Stephen Kostansky, the director and writer of PG Psycho Goreman, which comes out this week. So
nice.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. And how about you, Chris? Where can they find you online? And are you working on any projects in particular right now?
Yeah, you guys could probably find me on Instagram, cdubs, C4_ dubs. I'm primarily like a.
There was there.
There are 4 underscores.
Was there one that had 3 underscores?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just surprised that there were so many other C-dubs on there.
And not to be confused with CDog VA, because it sounds so familiar.
Yes.
So I do mostly like cosplay and 3D like printing work. Right now I'm working on a Mandalorian cosplay
That's awesome.
Awesome.
I'm excited to see that. Like, once we're able to go to conventions, I would like to see it in all of its glory, but clearly that's not going to be happening anytime in the near future. Fingers crossed on that front. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram via @TCTroush. Our episodes are uploaded onto YouTube concurrently once they go up on Libsyn, so you can check them out on there if that's easier for you. My personal website is www.tracytroush.com, so you can see what stuff I'm working on there. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on, guys. I apologize for that. The timing was kind of impromptu with this one, but you guys, you pulled it in, and I appreciate that.
Oh, happy to do so, and always happy to be a guest on the show.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah, no problem.
And yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. We will talk at you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Hey guys, thanks again so much for listening. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs. The outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or tell a friend to check us out. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and anywhere else you get your podcast. Find the show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. Follow us on Twitter via @lobster_writer and @TCTroush. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everybody.